Today I'm going to review the portfolio of Alyne Couto. Let's get started by looking at her LinkedIn. So, opening up her LinkedIn here, what I'm seeing is a few different things. So Alyne is a motion designer, a 2D animator, illustrator, and After Effects expert. Lives in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Alright, so this is honestly one of the first places that I look when it comes to people applying for jobs or even looking at their portfolio. I want to get a really good understanding of what it is that they actually want to do. So, looking at this, like this headline right here tells me a lot of different things. So, I do pay attention to that. What exactly is it that they aspire to do, right? So, if they say something like 2D animator, but they're applying for a job for 3D animation, I start to question some things a little bit here. But I see motion designer, 2D animator, illustrator, After Effects expert. There's honestly a lot of things here. I think that maybe that's a little too general. So the first thing that I would probably do is clear this line up right here of what exactly is it that you want to do. All right. Going down here, I'm not going to go too much into posts and stuff like that, but like these are things that I do pay attention to as well. Does the person post regularly? What kind of stuff are they saying? That kind of thing. I might look at their about, start looking at some of the experience that they have. So it looks like Alyne here is currently freelance. Been doing that for 2 years and 3 months. Before that, also freelance, I guess just at a specific company here. So for about a year. Let's see, we keep going down here. I love the fact that we're seeing work done at each of these jobs. I think that's really, really helpful for me to see. Going down here, so it looks like the earliest experience is 2017. We have about 5 or 6 years of experience. All right, good to know. Education, again, something that I'll take a look at to see, are they doing exactly what they went to school for? That just kind of shows me a little bit of a longer interest in the passion whenever I see those things. I don't necessarily honestly care so much about what grades they got or any programs or things like that they did, but I do like to see just generally where they went to school and again, just kind of what some of their focus was. Licenses and certifications. This stuff is interesting to me. I don't. It doesn't have a whole lot of weight as far as like decision making, but it does show passion for a lot of this stuff. So it does play a little bit of a role, but we see project skills, recommendations. I always like to see some recommendations on a LinkedIn page. So if you can get some people to write about the experience of working with you, that there's nothing really greater than social proof other than your portfolio, which kind of gets me to the point. Well, before I go there, languages. So this is another thing. I see a lot of, looks like Portuguese, either Portuguese or, yeah, looks like here, and English. So one of the things that I'm always looking for is, can I communicate with the person well, right? That's obviously an important thing. So, I see some of these that are all Portuguese that looks like it's probably a first language, but all the English that I'm seeing here looks like it's also well written. So, not something that I would worry about, but it's always one of those things where um, I like to just have a conversation with somebody before any decisions are made to just make sure, can we communicate well? Um, yeah. All right. So it looks like she passes all of the tests from from LinkedIn. Let's jump into her portfolio now. All right. So the first thing I'm seeing uh, is a very good impression. I see a very clean portfolio that I can immediately see what her strengths are. Um, I don't see very many weaknesses at this point, which is great. I don't see this crazy website design that's hard to navigate or hard to understand. Again, very simple. Love all of this stuff. So Up top we have projects, character, about, and contact. And then over on the right we have some links for social media stuff. Behance and LinkedIn, I think, are two great ones to have. I think, if you had something on YouTube or Vimeo, that'd be good to have too. But I really like just the cleanliness of this entire page right here. So to start, let me go down here a little bit here. I love how some of the thumbnails are actually moving to give me a sense of what does your animation look like. This middle one right here is really great illustration and really cool subtle animation with that. Love what I'm seeing with like the hair. We'll go into that project here in just a second. But if I'm going through this thing, that's the first project that I'm clicking on right there. I think it really grabs your attention. The one on the right here also grabs a lot of attention, but again, it's just the usefulness of just motion in some of these thumbnails. The one on the left here I am curious about as well, but without any motion there, I'm not as interested. Alright, going down here, looking at some more of this stuff. Something else I start paying attention to when it comes to illustration and motion design is different styles. I don't necessarily want to see just one style, unless you are trying to be an art director of sorts. I love to see just variety. So going down here a little bit more. Yeah, it looks like she's done a good job of putting her best work up top. Not to say that this stuff is bad, but it kind of trails a little bit as we sort of go down the page here. I think there's something good happening with these top 5 or 6 here. So, all right, now as I go down, this little envelope thing right here is super useful, right? If I wanted to send you an email, like give me that ability immediately without having to go to a contact page. I'm not gonna go there just yet, but let's go into projects. I'm assuming it just brings us back to the home page here. It does. Okay, let's take a look at, of this stuff. For me personally, there's 3 projects that sort of, 3 or 4 that sort of stand out here. The one that's first, I'm always going to click on because chances are the person thinks that this is their best piece that they've ever made. So if I want to know as much as I can about them, I'm going to click on that first one. So we'll open that one up. This one right here looks cool. I'm going to click on this. This whole top row I'm going to go with. For this one right here, I have a feeling that there's probably not too much more information in that other than kind of what I'm seeing here. But I'm going to go over to this one right here. I'm interested in this one right here because that's kind of a style that we've sort of done in the past. Something similar anyway. So I'm curious how she's gone about that. So I have my 4 tabs open. And this is exactly what I would do if somebody's applying for a job with us. And this is the exact process here. I'll go through, and if the few select projects that I go to look good, I'm going to look at every single one of them. I'm going to read every single word. But it starts with kind of proving that you are qualified for the position here. So, but from a motion design standpoint, we are looking pretty good on Alyne's portfolio here. So let me go into the first piece now. All right, J-pop is a project inspired by 90s animes, J-pop itself, and lots of nostalgia. I've been listening to many city pop songs and decided to create this dreamy retro city. Hope you enjoy it. All right, let's give this a play. Okay, so let's keep going down here. We see that it's actually, we have like a little, what's it called? A little template kind of thing. We're seeing the design on a t-shirt, seeing it on what it might look like on buildings. Some of the little animations here. So the illustration of this one I think is good, but overall this is just kind of a loop. I don't know. I guess for me, I would want to see more than this. This is one of the things that I talk about is like, if you're applying for a job at somewhere that makes longer format films, then you want to be able to show longer format things that you've done yourself. So for me, a 10-second loop of something just kind of doesn't really do it for me. It doesn't really tell me a whole lot about your skills when it comes to timing. It does show me that, okay, she can illustrate, she can make some things move, but it's not a good judge of any of that stuff. So, while I think this one is good, I have a feeling that this is not something that should be the very first piece on a portfolio. All right, let's go into the next one here. So, synth waving. I've always been driven by music, so I decided to create a Spotify concept ad using a synthwave song and retro aesthetics. It's also a motion design exercise. Same thing as what I was just saying in the last one. I don't want to see exercises. I want to see real projects. Exercises are great for like Instagram and things like short format things. So if you directed me over to there and I saw a lot of this stuff, that would be fantastic too. Not saying this stuff doesn't belong in a portfolio, but again, for me specifically, I'm looking for something else. All right. So another thing that I'm seeing here is character design is by Danilo Sanino. So I thought that Alyne actually made this. So, looking at the headline here, or like looking at the main things, I was probably most impressed by the illustration. So this is one of these weird things that happens on a portfolio where when you have other people, when you collaborate with other people on things, which I think is good, but when you say that you are an illustrator, well, I assume that everything on your portfolio is going to be illustrated by you. Now, I see that whenever we hover over, it says animation and compositing. So it's not like you're not lying about anything, Alyne. You're not doing anything wrong here, but it's just one of these things, just from a user experience perspective, it's hard to, once you think about something like that, it's kind of not super helpful, I guess. So if you are an illustrator, I expect everything to be illustrated by you. But, again, I think putting this right at the top, I think was your second best idea for that, and you did take that. So you're not trying to pretend like you illustrated this, so that's good. I actually love how there's, again, assuming that's Portuguese, I like how you have things in English and then Portuguese here. I think that's pretty helpful. All right, let's give this a play. I love the little movement that we're getting in a lot of these different places. So again, like I was saying before, the hair really jumps out to me as being something that just adds a lot of life into this. The subtle waviness of the whole thing, I think, looks really fantastic. Let's play it again. I love the eye blink that we have here, again, just giving some motion into things. Probably one of my favorite parts, though, is that subtle movement in the hand right here. I think this looks great. Just a really subtle thing, but it's something that you can definitely feel when it comes to just breathing life into an illustration. So, illustration-wise, again, this is fantastic to the artist that did this, and I think that the animation that you applied to it, Alyne, looks really great. But again, we get to this point where I want to see longer format things. Yeah, so let's keep going and see maybe if I get that or not. Alright, so on this one, I spent 2 years working exclusively for Vivo, a Brazilian telecom company. During this time, I was able to create and learn a lot, developing educational content. In this project, my team and I were challenged to demonstrate in a 2D animation what kinds of acts can lead to a conflict of interest and show how to avoid this situation. Okay, so we see here that the client is Vivo. We see an agency here, and Okay, so on this one, she didn't do the storyboard or animation. Somebody else did those things. So in this, okay, she put here she's second animator and post-production. So already, I'm wondering, when I watched this, what parts of this did she actually do? And I'm hoping that as I get farther down, I'm assuming that these things are here are the elements that she actually made herself. That's my assumption here. So we see down here more specifics. So animator on the following scenes: 0 to 19, 25 to 56, 1 to 2 to 127. All right, and then she also did post-production, so editing, sound effects, and captions. Again, really appreciate that we're seeing what your role specifically was on things. And again, I would love some clarifier on these things right here. Like, is that specifically what Alyne did? I'm left to assume this. So let's give this whole thing a watch and see what happens. Okay, it's 5 minutes long, so we're probably not gonna watch the whole thing, but.
Imagine que você precisa contratar prestador de serviço.
Let's see. Let me see here. So 0 to 19 seconds. We know she did the first 19 seconds. Alright, not a ton of movement there, but so 25 to 56. Starting now. This is some text animation. Got some characters in here. I'm going to stop right there. So part of what I'm seeing in a lot of this stuff, I think the illustrations are actually decent. I'm not entirely sure that she did those illustrations though, since it doesn't say anything about illustration and who worked on those. The animation though is a little stiff. We're not getting that same life that we saw with this synth waving piece right here. And that's the kind of stuff that I would love to see. Like, I would love to see, like, what, like, maybe not necessarily this style, but, like, this level of life. Like, what does that look like when you start to put it in something more like a traditional explainer type thing? You know, there's a lot of factors in here as far as, like, how much time she had to do it, which I'm sure wasn't a whole lot. But that's not something that I'm looking at. I'm looking at what is your best work, not what is something that you did that's okay, that you did quickly, you know, stuff like that. And, you know, some of the animation, like this little bouncing thing of getting the characters in there, that feels a little bit fast for everything else. One of the things that I want to see when it comes to animation is a good rhythm. You know, I want to see that if something is slower paced, that's totally fine, but everything should sort of match it. And that really fast movement right there just kind of stands out as being a little bit too much contrast and a little bit odd, basically, at that moment. So, all right, let me go over to the last piece right here. All right, so on this one, second storyboard artist, animation, and post-production. So second storyboard artist, I don't know what to make of that, honestly. I've never heard of that kind of position before. Like, at what level did you work on things? And I'm wondering if she's just, well, no. I wonder if she's saying storyboard as if illustrator. So we see that storyboard was made by Vivian Duarte. So I think this might be one of those things where there's kind of this difference in definition when it comes to storyboard artist. When I hear storyboard artist, I'm thinking of somebody that's sketching out the frames to be designed. And again, that's not just a America Brazil thing. That's even in the United States. There's people that have differing opinions of that. So, but now I'm starting to think that when we see storyboard, we're seeing illustration. is actually what we're looking at. And if she's the second illustrator, I'm assuming that these frames that we're seeing here are actually illustrated by Alyne here. And I think that all of these are super cool. It's a fun style, a little cutout style. As far as animation goes, this top one right here I think looks pretty good. Relatively simple. Top right one looks alright. This one right here I think looks pretty fun. I think we kind of see this again, just like we saw in the last one, though. Some of the physics doesn't exactly match real life as much. So what I would want to see, like when this hand comes down with the phone, it goes down slow and it comes up even faster. Like, sorry, I was acting that out. You can't see me, but what I'd love to see is just a little more of a natural movement. Like it can do like the ping pong kind of effect there, or the overshoot. But when it comes back faster, it just kind of feels a little unmotivated, I suppose. So, but that's just a little keyframe tweak right there. So for me, I see stuff like this, I'm like, that looks good. Like both the design and animation. Like if I see things that I know that would just be like a sentence of mine to just be able to correct in somebody, like that doesn't like deter me from ever wanting to work with that person. So, but yeah, just looking at that, I'm like, this looks good. It just needed like another round or two of revisions internally, and this would have looked really amazing. This one over here, this is super fun. I'm into this. It's such a stylistic thing. I mean, it's odd for sure, but I think it works. This one right here, bottom left, we're seeing a little bit more motion. I think that's cool. Yeah, all these are looking good. All right. So overall, for Alyne's portfolio, I think she did a great job with a lot of things here. One is great, clean portfolio, easy to understand, easy to dive into. The other thing is the work that I'm seeing, I think it looks good. Is it like amazing? No, not quite. But when you can start combining things like good illustration with animation, that kind of opens a little bit more doors, right? Not more a door, not more a door, more doors. Anyway, but what I'll say, so I guess more pros here. Easy to contact, easy to get a hold of. Social media links are all good. Has a way to be able to contact through the site. A variety of styles that we're seeing. I think that's really, really important, especially for somebody like me that runs a small team to be able to see. Now, things that I think could use some improvement. Oh, you know what? Actually, one more thing. I do love that we are seeing some real specifics on what Alyne's role was in every single project. That is something that a lot of people just kind of skip. And I know that people don't do that intentionally, but it does kind of read as if you're taking credit for somebody else's work when you don't credit the other people on there. And Alyne is definitely not trying to take credit for the work that anyone else is doing. So I really appreciate just all the links to the people that did work on things. But I will say that it still wasn't super, super clear. Not initially anyway. Like I had to kind of read more into those things to find out. And I'm honestly not sure what the correct solution is there, because when you click on these pages, you are seeing it pretty close to the top of what her role was on everything. But I think that it's just when we have a site design that's sort of like this, where we're seeing these thumbnails, you get really excited when you click on just the thumbnails and you're like, wow, like there's some really great illustration done here. But you don't, after clicking into it now, I'm like, I don't know for sure what she did and didn't do exactly. So I think for that, it's like just writing longer case studies and showing more that's the specifics on what you did specifically. All right. Now the things, kind of the cons here that I'm seeing, kind of a continuation of the last one, which is I don't know exactly what Alyne did and what Alyne didn't do initially. Like I have to kind of read into it a lot more to be able to figure things out. Um, I would say the other big thing that I'm seeing is just a lot of like looping animations. I I want to see longer format stuff because again, when I'm seeing this stuff, I'm seeing that you know how to use After Effects really well. I have no doubts about that. But what I'm not necessarily seeing is the ability to tell a story. And there's hints of it here and there, but I want to see timing and pacing. Um, I want to get a chance to see all the animation principles whenever I'm looking at the work of a motion designer or animator. So, um, outside of that, I don't think I had very many uh, cons. So my advice at this point would basically be to create your own films. Honestly, I think that's kind of where we're at right now is they don't have to be super long, but even just doing like a 15 to 30-second piece that actually tells some kind of story, um, I think would be really cool to see, especially using some of these techniques that Alyne's doing here. Again, I think all the stuff looks great, um, but I need to see more proof before I would ever personally reach out for a job opportunity. You know, that being said, again, I think that I give Alyne's portfolio a, let's see, I'll say a 3.5 out of 5. Room for improvement, but definitely heading in the right direction.